Hi, thanks for the nice intro. My name is Masa, for short, Masashi, and I run a company called Party, and it's really tough for me to present after David's wonderful presentation, but um, what we do at our company is we try to experiment with the creative process. I have a long background in advertising and brand communication design, but I was starting to get very tired of the routine works and all the similar processes that we take in the industry. And I felt that there could be a better, more efficient, more creative ways to actually make things rather than sticking to the one method that we normally go through. And at a company, we build many things, not traditional advertising in the sense of that, in that terms. We do TV shows, we make apps, we do product design, we make services, platforms, music videos, etc., etc. And the reason why we call Creative Lab is that, again, we like to always try and invent or experiment with the way we make things. So not just the executions, but we like to tailor-make the way we create things for our clients. It could be the way we interact with them, or it could be simply the methods and tools that we actually tailor-make for certain production. And so just a few examples of the experiments that we do. We experiment with the teamwork, meaning we actually work in teams of creative directors and tech directors at a company. In traditional advertising, it's always been copywriters and art directors, and I think that doesn't really mean so much anymore these days. It's not about coming up with ideas from words and art or visuals, but it's more about everybody could have the idea, but someone needs to be in charge of the craft and the story, and someone has to be in charge of the technical side, the feasibilities, and bringing in the right technologies to tell the right stories. Another thing is experimenting with the methods. So again, I think everybody talks about that, traditional advertising is dead. I still think that the concept of advertising is still there, but as David mentioned earlier, similar thing, we believe that instead of shouting your brand's message to the consumers, it's so much better to actually tell it through entertainment or tell it through utility or services that is actually useful for your consumers' lifestyles. So that's what we kind of do. Instead of advertising, we go back to clients saying that, okay, let's use what you have as your brand and create an entertainment content. And people could just have fun with it and learn your brand through that. Or let's create a new service utilizing what you have as a brand so that the people could actually have useful tool in their daily lives and know that it's actually coming from your brand. Another thing that we like doing that we've started is actually creating products for clients, actually prototyping different sorts of products and share the IP. So the strongest, I think, communication actually lies within the product itself. It's very hard. The way advertising worked before was that whatever product that you get, you try to promote it, you try to make it as shiny as possible, you try to polish it for your clients. But that's not actually, that's only scratching the surface of the issue or the problem. You really need to go into the core and figure out what's the most important change for the brand, which probably will be the brand's product itself. So as much as we can, we try to help our clients innovate the products. And the last but not least, we like to experiment with the methods or the process. So we try to be creative as possible in terms of how we make things. And that's the point that I want to really talk about today, which is about creative process. We call it, it's about making new ways to make things, basically. So we believe that it sounds like a no-brainer, but if you make things in a different way, if you make things that nobody else is doing, in a way that nobody else is doing, you actually get some output that nobody's seen before. Duh. So I'd like to show you some examples of what I mean by that. Like trying to recreate the creative process in order to come up with the output that is engaging, but also very surprising in the sense that it's using technology in a very different way. So first example is a music video that I made about 2 or 3 years ago. this was a crowdsourced music video, but instead of doing it the normal way, like hiring actors, hiring cameramans, going into the studio, shooting the band, what I did was I used the video chat, it was Skype, and shot every single frame using the webcam on the MacBook Pro. And we collected all the fans from around the world, about 80 different countries. And I edited it together to create this piece. So please have a look, and I'll go into how I developed this later on.
はい。じゃあ行きますか。
そっと水たまりが鏡に映る心は日々の迷路抜けた君の音色
Thank you. It's a pretty, old piece of work that I've done. So, the technology, video chats and everything, you have Hangout now and all of that. So it's not very new. But when I talk about technologies, it always doesn't have to be the latest. I actually like to use technologies quite readily available, so that the people can really understand what is being used here. So in this case, again, the new kind of process that I experimented was obviously about using a webcam to shoot a whole music video. And the reason I did that was that the budget was zero, basically. And I was in New York and the band was in Japan, so I couldn't shoot them in person. So I had to really come up with an idea to overcome those obstacles. Normally I say no to these kind of assignments, but these guys were my friends from high school, so I needed some way to help them, and get them up onto the charts in Japan. So one day I was Skyping these guys, talking about, okay, this is bordering impossible. I don't know if I could do this. But I realized that this is actually a way people are connected, using technologies. And the song was actually singing about connections, connecting with other people to, know who you are, kind of thing. So I felt that like this is actually a tool that perhaps I could use, and which would really talk about the lyrics through the technologies that I'm using as well. So I've tested it out. This was kind of what happened. After I had that idea, I sketched up a lot of different ideas of what I could do using the Skype screens. And if I just use a single screen, it would be quite boring. It would be just another person kind of dancing in front of the webcam. So I decided to do a multi-screen. So I thought of different ideas. I made choreographies of each of the concepts. At the end, I used 12 of them, and I shot like photo stuff. But another thing that I did in terms of the process was it was a prototype. We really like to prototype the hell out of things when we produce work for our clients. Same applied to this project. So everybody kind of asked, how did you kind of get the choreographer? How were you able to synchronize all these movements of people? And this was the secret behind it. So I actually shot the whole music video once, edited it together. So I actually completed it at one time, just using my friends.
そっと水たまりが髪に
And this
映
actually
る
helped me to
心は
create a
日
level
々
of
の音
quality
色
of
抜
the
けた
choreography,
君
the
の
timing,
音
of how when to move, as well as it became a guide for all these amateur people. So we sent this video out to each of the person that participated and told them that, okay, you are grid C3 here. So what they were doing was they were seeing this video at the same time as they were Skyping me. And I was recording the screen in New York when these people from Brazil, Portugal, Japan, they were all watching the video moving in sync with that. The reason I did this was that, I knew that the DIY kind of spirit, the fact that the crowdsource was very important in terms of quality of film. So I didn't really want to slow down motions or like, time remap on the editing machine. So in order to achieve like that organic kind of motions, we needed to go through this extra step, which was a very pain in the ass, but sometimes so again, it forms a prototype. And another one I'd like to show is another music video project. We don't only do music videos, but I like doing it. It's a project for a Japanese band called Androp. And the song was about memories, so I wanted to do something with memories. And the track was called Bright Siren. So I wanted to do something with lights. So I combined those two together, and what I came up with was creating a wall using 250 cameras. And I controlled all the strobes on the cameras using Arduino and Open Framework to create an animation out of light. So I don't think I could show you the whole thing, but here's the video. You could check this out later on YouTube. I don't think I have enough time to show everything. But here, obviously, in this project, the new ways to make was about, controlling camera strobes to create an animation out of light in a totally different way. No CG was used, and the cameras were actually taking photos at the same time as the strobes were flashing. So we actually had like 1 million of photos at the end, and on the website, we showed all the photos at the same time. The process here was that, we started with a comp like this. Very simple, and it actually turned out quite like this, which was surprising. The only difference was that I wanted to use like 1,000 cameras at the beginning, but it ended up 250. So anyways, we're doing something that you haven't really seen before, done before. So we go through a lot of testing. So at first we tried out different ways to control the strobes. So we started doing it with 3, and it worked. So technically, logically, I thought that, well, if it works for 3, it could probably work for 1,000. But I didn't think about the time I needed to solder all the cables, which again was a pain in the ass. I spent 4 nights. And on the side of the soldering, I went into doing the storyboarding. So same thing, but I had to storyboard twice because there was the acting in the front and the lights in the background. Just normal stuff, like the choreography of the lights. I made all the fonts and everything. But then the biggest thing here, again, was the prototyping, or the way we use the technology. So, the finished piece is a film. It's very simple, but we're using a lot of technologies in the background, which I really enjoyed doing, because it was all about creating new tools using the technologies in order to achieve, again, the right quality of the film. When you use technologies, you tend to like to have that technology up front, where people could actually touch and move and do all sorts of new stuff. But here we used it for to create an app or a program that helped us create the animations. So we went in to Adobe Air, very simple, and we created a simulator of the actual camera wall, because the obstacle here was that I would have never been able to collect 250 cameras until the day of the shoot. And without the cameras, I would not know how the lights would actually look. So here we made a simulator. We have a simple, it's hard to see, but the artist in the front, and in the background, the strobes kind of were flashing. So we were able to import simple Flash Swift files onto here and emulate the whole experience like this. And it also helped us to export like a JSON file, which we use to control the Arduinos. So it killed 2 birds at 1 stone, basically. But again, this is just for internal usage, but it really helps to streamline the process in order for us to kind of share the visions with the whole team in terms of what we want to achieve. Another one that we did with kind of interesting process was a thing called Sperm Visualizer for Space Shower TV. It was like an MTV for Japan, and they wanted a campaign for a slogan called "The Music Saves Tomorrow." This was after the post-war, so everybody wants kind of doing something very serious, but we wanted to do something kind of quirky and fun, so it's kind of more uplifting than becoming too serious about the matter. So the idea was that music saves tomorrow. Tomorrow, I immediately thought about children, but then children, that's too obvious to be in advertising. So I took a step back and thought about, well, what if we use sperms? Nobody's seen so many sperms. So this was the commercial that we shot. So that was the logo of their music channel. So we made like 3 films like this, and you probably asked, like, okay, what was so different about the making? It's just CG. But actually, what we did was that all the staff members, it was actually all male. So we actually took our sperms and brought it to a lab and motion captured and took the texture. So these are real sperms. I think there's some of mine and some of our producers. And we actually have a making of video, which is interesting. It's not like what you think. But you might still ask why you do this. This is a little bit of a play of an experiment for ourselves. We also have a website where you can choose different tracks. So we start trying to believe that, if you're creating things in your process, maybe showing that process to different. So it's not just a means to create something new, but perhaps that could become a part of the whole story, of what you're trying to achieve. If we did this just in CG, it would have never been, as buzzworthy as it actually became. But because we went through this painful process, I think that actually added the value to the story. So something a little more low-tech. Again, when I talk about technologies, I don't think you always have to use the latest technology. I think something such as like a book or printed mediums, these used to be the latest technologies one time. So I think there's still things that you could play around with and experiment with in these mediums. A really old book, again, like 4 or 5 years ago, that I made called Rainbow in Your Hand. So it's a flip book, but when you flip the pages, you actually see a rainbow, like a 3D rainbow, using the after images. So it was like a simple book like this. All boxes, colored boxes on the same pages, but when you flip, magic things happen, and you see this, And it was an experiment for me to play with a medium that's been existing for a few hundred years. And flip books or even just normal books, everything happens on the page. Especially for flip books, it was all animations, of consecutive images making motion. But instead, I wanted to explore the possibilities of kind of liberating the content from the pages, and this is what I did. And this was a process, there wasn't anything that new. I just used my old Epson printer at home, and I printed a prototype myself. But then I actually went off printing about 300 copies when I knew that it worked, using my pocket money. So this was a very small personal project at the beginning, while I was working in a big advertising network. But I wanted to do something for myself, and from there, I just sold the pieces to bookstores. One place really liked it, and then they helped me kind of do the distributions. From there, we just posted this video on YouTube, and it immediately kind of gained a lot of views. And now it's in Colette in France, it's in Mocha in LA, all different museum stores. So it just made me realize that there's something kind of magical happening right now in the social medium, where the size of the budget, or the size of the brand doesn't really matter, and it's all about the size of the idea that counts. If you have the right idea, you have all these tools and mediums that you could share and spread and make, and So this was an interesting realization. It's just kind of encourage everybody out here, to kind of make things, and then put it out into the world, and who knows what's going to happen. You might be filthy rich in a day, which I'm not. That's selling well, but it's not that much money making. Anyways, another project was something that we did for Toyota. It kind of touches more upon the methods that we like to explore in terms of brand communications. It was a assignment coming from Toyota asking, can you guys make an advertising for kids? Because kids are our future drivers, but they're not interested in driving anymore. Can you do something about that? And we immediately went back to them saying, well, kids don't really check advertising, so you shouldn't probably do that. But instead, we wanted to create a brand, a toy brand with Toyota, which the kids could actually play with and then learn about the fun of driving through that. So we realized that there's a toy inside Toyota, so we created this thing called Toy Toyota with them. And this was the first project that we did called the Backseat Driver. It was an iPhone app, and it only used simple technologies, but in a way that it wasn't really used before.
The world's first application that you can enjoy driving from the back seat of your car.
So I'll just play this for.
Once you launch the application, your virtual car moves right along with your actual car. You can take a virtual drive, linked by GPS to your actual driving route. Actual landmarks appear as items along your route. You can collect existing stores and other buildings as you move along. You can earn points and use them to customize your virtual car. You can share how you've customized your car and where you're going on Twitter. So why not start making your own virtual car? And have some backseat fun with your new mobile entertainment application. Toy Toyota, happy on board.
So a very simple way of using something as GPS. It was in your smartphone for ages, but we just used it in a slightly different way to create a more engaging experience for the kids inside the car. And we're actually building a new kind of toy right now. It's more tangible. It's not an iPhone app. But I think that this kind of communication makes more sense in other cases for the clients that we work for. It's about creating entertainment rather than an advertising piece. So one last thing that I'd like to show is something new that we've just started to doing. It's called the Omote 3D Shashinkan. It means like Omote 3D photo booth. And what we're doing here is that we realize that there's a lot of occasions in Japan where the family goes into like a photo store to take family portraits, kind of to, as a memorabilia to for things like Shichigo-san. It's like for when your kids becomes 5 or 7 years old, we do that. It's a traditional thing in Japan, but we want to kind of innovate that in using the technologies that we have now. So instead of taking photos, we created like a system and a whole back-end software to manufacture 3D figurines of your family instead of photos. And it's a product that we're developing and kind of proposing to our clients using the prototype here. This kind of just shows a method of how we do it. Oh, no sound. So using like a portable 3D scanner, we go in and actually scan our models, as you see here. Then we create a full model of the family, and then put it in a 3D printer to create miniature family sculptures. And 3D scanners been around, 3D printers have been around. There's been similar, I guess, experiments being done, trying to recreate humans. But we put it inside a context that was really relevant for the consumers in Japan. And I think that's what really matters about the ways we use technologies. It's all about finding the right story or the right concept that people could relate to and injecting technologies into that. And I think the biggest innovation is like the mobility of the booth. We could take it anywhere because the 3D scanners are very small now. You don't have to have those pillars that weighs about a ton. And also the tricky part was actually in the 3D modeling. There were all these glitches, so we figured out a way to smooth out and erase all those errors inside the 3D data. So this is just making up, but since I'm running out of time. So again, I think these were just a few of the examples that we do in our lab. We always try to combine the right stories with the right technologies, and by going through a different creative process, I think these things are achievable. But if you always stick to those methods that you think you have to work in, it's very hard to free your kind of imaginations and creativity. So, I always recommend kind of taking a step back, once you get an assignment from a client, and try to think of ways of making your own tools to create something. You don't have to use the same paintbrush every time. Maybe you could invent a new paintbrush, which would actually give you a whole new way to draw. So that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Masashi. Very creative explorations. Really amazing work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the floor?
Hi, I'm Sam, and thanks for your sharing. And I'm a design student recently doing my FYP, and the topic is about technology and communication. And as I can see in your projects, there are so many projects about the interaction between human and people. So as an aspect of communication, what do you see the real human relationship in terms of technology?
You mean like humans and technologies, or like how technology is helping connections, or?
The real human relationship. Yes.
How should I answer this? I think, oh yeah. Well, I don't know if this is answering, but even though we use technologies, and especially like in our lab, we like to use technologies because we have a strong background in that. But I think some things like technologies are evolving, but some things like human emotions and physical interactions aren't really changing. We're born with these 5 senses. We have this physical, tangible body. And that's never going to change. So I think whenever we use the technology, we try to be really mindful that it doesn't kind of become a demonstration for the technology. I mean, there's touch screens and everything, but who knows? We're only using the sense of touch and the eyesight and hearing. So I think everything has to be rooted in these human senses and human emotions. So again, although we like to use latest technologies, if it's too new, people won't probably know how to relate to it. It's cool because it's just new, and we don't really like to do that. We want to use existing stuff that people already know and use it in a surprising way, or use it in a more engaging way. And I think that's where the innovation is. So I don't know. It's probably not the right answer for your question, but that's what I wanted to say.
How do you balance your own projects with the client's projects? What are the differences, or how do you deal with the differences?
Well, I think that was the one reason I started the company. I wanted to do this under one roof. And before that, I had a lot of good times in bigger creative agency networks and stuff. But then it was really hard to justify my personal project within the company structure. It's like, okay, you're not making enough money for that, or like, okay, we're paying you to do these assignments for the clients, and why are you spending your time doing your own thing? So, but then within myself, like, there was no difference. It's the only difference is that you're actually creating something for your client, or you're creating something for your own curiosity, basically. So at Party, we take in everything. So not just me, but all the other partners have their own kind of projects coming in, but we just help and build it together. So there's no such thing as a separation between the two.
So the process is pretty much the same.
The same thing,
Engagement
yes,
is
right.
the same, yeah.
So we really, look at those kind of personal projects as more of a prototype. So like the 3D scanner, the photo booth thing, it just came from like a personal project. Me and my partner just started to play around with the scanners. But then, now it grew into an exhibition, and now we have this package that we're trying to sell to our clients. Now we own the IP, and it's more of our own product now.
It's kind of like research and development in a way.
Right, R&D process, and I think that's actually the way of the future. You don't always have to wait for your clients or your consumers to come to you and to make something for them. You should make something for yourself, and then try and see how that fits into the world around you. So.
That's exciting. Excellent. Let's give another round of applause to Masashi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.